during each semester. And so really excited to bring to you guys a fully robust schedule for this spring semester. I will remind you to check out the georgiafintechacademy.org website and sign up for our future events, register for those. We have a combination of events like this one this evening, career fairs, and some in-person activities to be expected and anticipated. So really excited for the 2024 spring semester. On other terms, there's some other new things just to update you guys on. We are revamping our YouTube channel, Georgia Fintech Academy. You should be able to easily find us, as no one else really using those words out there. We also have a presence on Instagram as well. So please follow us on the social channels. I will put in the chat, or Levita, if you can help me put in the chat. I think I have easy access to it, but the GroupMe link as well. We are constantly posting updates. And if you have any technical issues joining a call, it's the best way to engage with us.
Right. And I was going to say, Laura, everyone that registered, I sent out the GroupMe and our event schedule a little while before this meeting. So you should have it.
Perfect. So you all should have that. And I look forward to seeing these names on future events and engaging with you guys this semester. As I transition over to our guest speaker this evening, Melissa Colin, I had met her, had the honor to meet her in person last year at Paytech Women, which some of you might know. We also had some students join us at that amazing event. Melissa Colin is an amazing leader with a long history, not dating you, Melissa, of experience in the industry.
I'll do that myself.
Yeah.
When I start talking.
She's younger than I make it sound with the timeline. She's been years of experience that she has as SVP, head of banking and data solutions. I believe I got that correct, Melissa, at FIS, one of our top tier sponsors for the Academy. They've been at the forefront since the origin of the Academy and have recently signed on an additional $1 million gift to the Academy. And so we are so appreciative of FIS and what FIS represents in the industry. And we are really appreciative, Melissa, for you to come and spend some time with the Academy this evening. Followed by this discussion, we also have a recruiting representation, talent representation that will speak to you guys about opportunities with FIS. So without further ado, Melissa, I'll turn it over to you.
Excellent. Thank you. I am honestly so excited to be here and really appreciate you inviting me. When Laura extended the invite for me to reshare my Paytech Women presentation, I jumped at the chance because the thing that will honestly fuel the next FinTech revolution, we're going to talk about currency revolution tonight, is the next generation of talent, of the thinking and passion to do things differently. And that's what I see so many of you represent. And in my interactions with those of you who went to Paytech Women this year. And I also just know openly, when I was in the early phases of my career, finishing school, I would have loved to have access to more perspectives, to see more career paths that weren't as traditional. So a little bit about me. I have a kind of background slide up, but I've been with FIS for nearly 20 years. I have been working in financial services for just over 25, and never did I expect to be in financial services. I came out of college as a marketing major and started to look for jobs and ended up at a marketing agency in New York City that did two things. They represented travel and tourism clients, and they represented financial technology clients. Those things typically don't go together. So I had tons of friends who were like jetting off to Greece and I was taking the subway downtown to Wall Street to visit my clients. But somehow I truly fell in love with it, the challenge, the complexity. When I took the job, I thought I was going to be in there, it'd be a great year of experience, and then I'd go out and do something more mainline, and that never happened. So I am also a really big promoter of inclusion and diversity as it pertains to our organization and for a lot of the outside boards that I sit on as well. So, like I said, this wasn't where I intended to end up, and I'm happy to answer questions at the end of this about the content I'm going to present or about my background, but it's part of what makes me so passionate about coming and being able to speak at events like this. So with that, the presentation, as Laura said, a few of you may have had the opportunity to see at Paytech Women, where I had the honor of sharing it as one of the keynotes. And while I always get really excited to kind of share my perspective and the predictions around the future of money movement, when this keynote in particular came up, the real reason I ended up saying, yes, absolutely, you can count me in, is because the theme of the event, which is one that for me is so huge, as an advocate for a more inclusive workplace, and also with, I said, a communication degree, background in marketing, I've really spent my career looking for different ways to encourage, mentor, and help others make their voice heard. And it's because when I believe that when we talk together, our voices get louder, stronger, more powerful. And that's the best way to help make your message heard, is to harness the power of those around you to help. And there's never been a more critical time for us to speak up, to lead conversations, to get comfortable. And I tell my teams this a lot, to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because that's the way we know we're really pushing the boundaries that are needed for change. We're working and living in uncertain times. I probably don't need to tell many of you the cost of living keeps going up. Interest rates hit an all-time 22-year high last year. We are continuing to talk about a potential recession. We've been talking about it for a good 18 months, so I'm hopeful. It isn't here yet. Whether or not 2024 is it, or we skate by, we'll see. But we're also at a point where consumers are really questioning the stability of their financial providers. I've been, as Laura said at the start, in this industry for quite a while. And I have to remind myself a lot that, hey, you know what? Our client expectations have continued to change. The market has continued to change. Technology has continued to change. And just when I think it can't get any faster, it gets faster and faster. Even looking at the events of March of last year and the liquidity crisis among many banks, right? That is something that has not been seen in many, many years, and really changes the playing field again and again for us. So I think it's just important to understand that innovation is truly transforming our industry every single day. It really is one of the things I love the most about my job. I can't tell if that feedback is mine or not.
If you are not on mute, can you please mute yourself? Thank you.
Thank you. So I was talking about, right, the pace of change and the fact, and it's what keeps me interested. I said at the beginning, right, like it could have been really cool to go off and run PR for, travel and tourism organizations, but the amount of change that was taking place in financial technology at the time really drew me in. And it's because I'm a little bit of a change junkie. And that's the thing that's kind of driven my career ever since. It's keeping, your finger on the pulse, and discovering which technologies are really going to drive the next change and deciding how we're going to apply those to unlock the opportunities. It is just, I don't know, it's really exciting for me. I'm sure the fact that you are all part of the Academy tells me that you probably feel very much that, technology is at the epicenter of so many changes personally and from a business perspective. But here's the thing, you cannot ignore the risk that always comes trailing alongside opportunity, because doing new things, pushing boundaries, especially when you push them in something, as important and that affects the entire, money movement or like a orchestration across the globe, you need to get it right. This is, I always say there's that balance between fail fast and making sure that, your failure is contained, because banking and payments is not something where you can tolerate failure. So it's that combination of technology and payments that really can open the door to new opportunities, whether you're a bank, whether you're a merchant, fintech, or someone just looking for an easier way to pay. Because I know when technology is applied right by the right teams with the right strategy and the right end users in mind, clients are delighted, relationships get stronger. I see that with my banking clients day in and day out. Their costs go down, my costs go down, and our growth accelerates. But it takes a lot to make that happen. And if I were to kind of summarize the intent behind the questions I'm most often getting asked by my own clients, it's, how do I find my footing on ground that's constantly shifting? And what can I do now, like right now, when so many things seem fluid? I know that so many of you can probably relate to that combination of ambition and uncertainty. Feel free to drop an emoji if that is something that you're feeling on a regular basis. I know I certainly can, and I wish I was here to tell you that I have the answers, but I don't. There is not a crystal ball, and there really is no foolproof way to predict what's going to come next. But I do have some good news, and that is that there are things we can do to move with confidence when things seem uncertain. And I really do think that these three things are things that I picked up when I was still in school and have really helped me throughout my career. And, my perspective when I'm not sure what to do, I turn to the research. I ground myself in the facts that I do have. I take time to create the plan. I'm deciding what that decisive action is going to be. And then focusing on agility, right? You have to revisit the risks and the opportunities and make adjustments as you go. One of the most consistent mistakes I see across leaders of all tenure, all backgrounds, is developing a plan and then sticking with it no matter what. Guess what? When you develop that plan, there's a lot of things you don't know. Even the research that you're relying on, right? I've just talked about all the things that change. So you need to make sure the research you're focused on is fresh. It takes into account changes that may have just occurred. So everything I'm about to share with you comes from primary research that's fielded by FIS. And I'm going to draw from 3 reports. They were all published within the last 10 months. The first one is the Global Payments Report, which came out in March. And it looks at how consumers around the world pay at checkout today, and more importantly, how they really want to pay. Next is the FIS Experience Gap Research, which compares what consumers want with where businesses are actually investing. This came out in June. And then the last one is the Global Innovation Report, the most recent of the group, which came out in October. And it captures views from around the globe as to how business leaders are thinking about innovations and technologies that they believe will truly transform their companies. I always say, usually Global Payments Report, Gap Research, these are not uniquely named. You do have access, and we can share with the Academy the full reports for all of this if anyone's interested in it. But I did want to take a little bit of time to share what I saw as recurring themes across these 3 research studies that ultimately pulled data from more than 55,000 respondents across 40 countries. And the 3 themes for me that just truly stood out were, first, every company out there is absolutely chasing the next innovation. We'll talk a little bit more about some of those, but things like ChatGPT, everyone's thinking generative AI, where can I use it? How is it going to solve all my problems, or is it going to become my third rail? And regardless of whether that innovation is aimed at improving the client experience, whether it's supporting a new asset class or just improving efficiency, the risk exposure they bring is growing. And that's the second theme that we'll spend some time talking about, risk. And finally, technology is the most common enabler of accelerating those innovations and managing the risk. So let's start with innovation. When we released the Global Innovation Report, advances in client experience ranked second on the list of innovation strategies that companies plan to invest in across every single sector we surveyed, with one exception, and that exception was financial institutions. In the case of financial institutions, client experience was number 1, and that makes a lot of sense because client expectations keep rising while honestly loyalty is diminishing. Moving from one provider to the next is getting easier and easier, right? I think it would be, if you even think and calculate, right, in your lifespan, how many different financial providers have you personally used? And I'm thinking of financial providers as banks, as loan providers, as money movements, right? Even Venmo, PayPal, right? So tally those up, and they're all looking for more and more of your business. So moving is getting easier, and that's the case for banks just as much as it is for retailers or payment providers. Plus, it's all happening while we're simultaneously, the banking industry, servicing more generations than any other point in history. When I look, my clients are all banks, but when I look at their clients, their consumers can be anywhere from 10 to 100. Think about, the first time you opened a bank account. Your parents might have brought you in. Think about when you got your first credit card, if you have a credit card, right? So those happen at early stages, but then that is your entry into a very long relationship with the financial industry. And as part of the FIS experience gap research, we found that 91% of US financial services firms, 78% in the UK, say that high interest rates are really impacting their ability to innovate and invest. So they're putting the greatest share of those limited investments into where clients can see it directly, better client experiences. You know, when people think about innovation, they often frame it in terms of the latest technology. Sometimes, though, it's not about the latest technology. It's about taking some of those really well-established technologies and applying them to something new or evolving it into something different. So when you think about payments, one of the best examples is probably account-to-account payments. They're not new. If you think about, you know, sending a wire, you know, see or hear it all the time in movies. The ability to send a wire, which is really digitally moving account balances over what was literally wires, has been around longer than I've been alive. So Laura said she wouldn't date me, but I will date myself. It's been a long time. And yes, it's the ability to do real-time payments that has really propelled some of the growth that we're seeing today. Last year, account-to-account payments represented $525 billion in global e-commerce transactions. If you were to break it down, I bet that more of your payments that you've made have been account to account than they have been in more traditional methods. Right. And with new regulation, things like FedNow, which is the Federal Reserve's real-time payment service, we expect this to grow even faster in the US. So this is definitely going to become where the bulk of money movement happens. So the availability of those high-speed payment rails is enabling new use cases each and every day. I recently had the opportunity to work with what was one of my favorite use cases to date. And it was in the retirement sector. So when I talk about the retirement sector, I'm think about a 401k or 403b, a retirement savings account that you will hopefully have access to at one of your earlier jobs. Separately, this is not part of the payment, but invest in that 401k from the start, even when you don't think you have enough money. It's probably the best piece of advice I've ever gotten at coming into my first career, because it really does build up over time. But I was working with a leading asset manager that wanted to process hardship withdrawals from retirement accounts like a 401k using the like of Zelle, Venmo, and Apple Pay. So for those of you who aren't familiar with hardship withdrawals, as the name implies, they are really like last resort. There's high penalties for taking money out of a retirement account ahead of retirement. There's very few use cases where you can, but if you are in desperate need, you can take an advance on that. And typically, it will take a significant amount of time to get access to that money. They'll process a check, they'll mail it to you, it'll take a week or more, and that's if you're lucky. So this asset manager that I was working with wanted to find a better way to get people their money in a time of need. And that was truly because they knew this was a moment that mattered, and this is what was going to help build loyalty with that individual. So as they got back on their feet, it could become a beneficial relationship to them. So today, that asset manager can now issue a hardship withdrawal in minutes rather than weeks. And that's really like one of the best examples about using innovation to create a better client experience. It wasn't new technology. It's not like Venmo just came out, but it really helped them think differently about how they were going to engage with their clients. So what else does the research show us? Digital wallets are probably the next area that we will see continue to grow. In fact, right now it's the #1 payment method used globally, but both e-commerce and point of sale payments. And it's expected to continue growing at that rate. And it's no wonder that the competition for these digital wallets is really supercharged right now. You see fintechs, banks, neobanks, super apps, big tech like Google, and even device manufacturers all trying to get in the game. So think, your Apple Wallet. Now, CX and new growth is what I personally think of as the fun side of innovation. But with things like this in every new innovation, we talked about it earlier, comes risk. So if you reframe how you think about it, innovation can also play a really important role in helping to identify and assess and manage that risk. So this year's Global Innovation Report, these companies are applying innovations to help mitigate the growing number of risks coming at them. In fact, I think, hold on, let's see if it's on my next slide. It's not, but we will get there. 49% of firms felt they were facing more risk than they ever had in the past. And not surprisingly, retailers and fintechs led the pack when it came to feeling that increase in pressure. So what kind of risk are they talking about when they say, hey, we feel like more risk is coming at us? 63% of respondents ranked financial risk as their #1 concern. And with inflation, rising interest rates, supply chain and staffing shortages, right? Those all play a role. And then, of course, there is fraud. At this point, I don't know how many calls from Venmo saying that I needed to provide them with a PIN over the holidays that I received. They were all fraudulent. And, that's because cybercrime is no longer just an incident. It truly is an industry. The cost of cyber hacks in the US is more than 15 trillion in losses by 2025. So that number is staggering. That's trillions. And to put it in perspective, that's more than the revenue of the top 100 companies on the Fortune 500 combined. So to think that that is what it's projected to be at stake for cybercrime is, unthinkable. So now working at a fintech company, one of the findings that did surprise me most on this front as well is how people are handling the increase in financial risks that they're seeing. So it's all the risks, it's not just cyber. But the top answer, and I hope it horrifies all of you as much as it does me, especially given the likely career paths you're going to go into, but the #1 way people are addressing the risk is through adding more staff to focus on the problem. That is not going to get companies where they need to be to battle this 15 trillion in cybercrime alone, right? That is not a scalable way to deal with this. We need technology. And of the 10 industries we looked at, only 2 ranked technology ahead of people: financial services and fintech. I think because the stakes are so much higher. With that said, there was a bright spot, and that's that early adopters, people who are among the first to utilize new technology, are most likely to feel like they were facing less risk in the past, and that they were better equipped to manage that risk. And on the surface, this probably feels counterintuitive. When I first read it, I thought, how can that be? But after all, the reason I thought it is because new technology is what we're saying brings risk, right? When you think about all the different areas, yet facing those risks earlier than most is what gave these firms the confidence in their ability to manage those risks. So 60% of executives at early adopters rated themselves as very confident that they were able to manage risk. And that's more than 15 points ahead of their peers. And given my job and background, I'm probably a little bit biased, but working together, I truly believe that it is technology that is going to unlock opportunity, and it will become the key to sustaining and keeping up with the change we're experiencing. So, sorry, I lost my train of thought for a moment. Oh, yeah. So the best possible experiences with the highest level of security and the lowest amount of risk is what I am constantly striving for when I look at product development, when I look at how we're developing with inside FIS. But I also really realize the clock is ticking, and it's not a luxury. Like, time is not something we can really afford when it comes to being able to progress so much of the change that is in front of us today. So I'll give you a couple examples. Merchants are facing really stiff competition for new customers. So think of that merchant can be a global retailer, like a Nordstrom's or a Tesco, or it could be your retailer right down the street, a local provider. Every single day, they are evaluating the trade-offs between online and in-person transactions and experiences, and they're contending with customer loyalty that's continually being redefined. We talked earlier about it's easier to start switching. If we look at fintechs, while new providers are flocking to the space constantly and accelerating advancements, it's also creating changes and challenges in terms of fragmentation, new regulation that we expect to see this year around fintechs, and even embedded finance. And we're still figuring out how to make the most of all of and implement all of the best technologies in a way that works for our organizations, my organization, my customers' organization, and ultimately for all of you who are consumers of those companies. So it's certainly, I'll go back to a very interesting time. One of my favorite examples is also buy now, pay later. This is something that was in the headlines, and really something that was thought to be the next big thing, right, 2 years ago. But by the middle of last year, as inflation and interest began to climb, it became questionable whether this was in the best interest of the end consumer. And so regulators are starting to introduce new rules to address concerns around customer well-being and to bring buy now, pay later more in line with legacy consumer credit products, where there are more protections about, right, what those repayment terms are, the timelines, the interest that can be charged. Yet, despite the headwinds, buy now, pay later continues to grow because it's adapted. Consumers are interested in these alternative credit vehicles, especially because we are entering challenging economic times. And so the transaction volumes continue to grow. And these providers have changed the way they're offering it. There's still more than 200 global providers offering installment loans at checkout, which is a great example of relying on the research, creating that plan and staying agile. Things change, you have to change with it. It doesn't mean you scrap the plan, but you need to evolve it. Now, and I mentioned it earlier, you can't really talk about tech these days without talking about generative AI. So ChatGPT, DALL-E 2, and while I love the videos of people pranking their partners and the super creative pictures that are always flooding my feeds, both thanks to generative AI, the uncertainty it brings is immense. I've sat through numerous meetings with CTOs of some of the largest financial institutions. And some of them will say, I am absolutely testing and finding use cases. And others that have said, it brings too much risk. This is not for us. Now, I think that the latter will end up changing their tune eventually, but it goes to the fact that in financial services, the risk level is always something you need to consider. Yet so is the promise. So 77% of firms will be using generative AI by the end of 2024. And while businesses are bullish on the benefits it'll deliver, consumers aren't quite as ready. This was one of the things that came out of our gap research, especially when it comes to their money, right? Only 10% of consumers reported interest in using AI-generated financial advice if it was offered by their bank, and I get it. I spent a good portion of my career in wealth tech, and I've seen the way technology can benefit the quality and accessibility of financial advice. But when it comes to my money, I want to know that the tech my advisor is using is proven, it's tested, it's secure. And when it comes to emerging tech, the use cases really matter. Early adopters are confident in their ability to manage risks because they start exploring and testing from the start. They're finding ways to apply the technology in a controlled environment and then building their way out. Let me give you an example. So at FIS, we see tremendous value in tools like ChatGPT. But we also know that the risks could be equally large. You've seen a lot of headlines. Sony was one of the first around breach of IP. And so we knew we're not ready to directly expose our clients to generative AI until we better understand those risks and opportunities. But that doesn't mean we're not utilizing it or exploring. In fact, our client experience team today is using AI internally. We're piloting it with our frontline teams to help them answer client questions faster and with a higher degree of accuracy, but still with that human filter in front of it. So as AI evolves, we're going to keep our experience with it will evolve. We'll keep our eye on it. And we'll also evolve our plans and continue to adjust. Because you know what? A trend by definition is really about the way something moves over time, the way it changes. And it's about what's new and what comes next. And I really do believe that we are at an inflection point. We understand financial interactions can and should be done differently. And we have reached a place where we now have the technology to help us make it happen. Now it's up to all of us. And in fact, more so up to all of you as you think about your career journeys as you enter the workforce. So my question that maybe I'll leave you with is this: are you ready to reimagine the future of payments, the future of financial technology? You've set aside the time to come to be part of the FinTech Academy, to invest in yourself and to invest, I'm sure, the other people whose faces are on this screen. So I'm confident the answer is yes. And so I will kind of close out where I started before I take questions, and just remind you all to, move with confidence amid uncertainty, rely on the research, create a plan, but above all, remain agile and don't hold back. Because amplifying your voice, really putting yourself into it and pushing boundaries is the way that our industry is going to continue to evolve. So with that, I'm going to take a drink of water because I feel like I've talked an awful lot and my voice is getting raspy. But I'd love to just have an open conversation. Feel free to ask questions. I think I saw some filtering in through the chat.
Yeah, I'll help you there, Melissa. So drink your water. Refresh yourself. Yeah, there's so many thoughts I have just thinking about your presentation. One of the questions that we had were about career opportunities available in FinTech. And I think this is one of those questions I love to kind of dismantle some set expectations. There is no formula in this industry. I think some students and some of you on the line might think, you have a specific degree and you are only eligible for a very specific function in the industry. And the industry is very diverse. As you can see in Melissa's presentation, there's a lot of functions that come out of the demand for new technology capabilities in the industry. And to facilitate that, it requires almost every function you can think of, from project management to engineering and developers, to folks that are data analytics and interested in qualitative analysis, to even HR functions and recruiting functions that require to help staff and keep those things, those functions operational. And so I think I would love to get others on the line included as part of that conversation, but there's a lot of opportunity in this industry based on what Melissa outlined. And then there's also opportunities that are untapped, things that we're still learning about, which is really exciting. What Melissa mentioned around, ChatGPT, generative AI, and artificial intelligence, and we've been using that for decades for fraud prevention and detection. But now there's other use cases that particular technology is being applied. And so it's exciting to learn about that, but that creates a whole new realm of roles and job opportunities, right, in this industry. Anyone have any thoughts on that or comments? I see a hand up in the Carlos. Carlos, you have a question?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry. So I just have I have one question, right? Because, all of these types of conversations and every kind of like presentation that I join, it always racks my brain when they just throw out information, and just like, especially for us who are still kind of trying to get the basics of most of our studies down in the college environment. And we don't have a lot of experience with all these kind of things. And I'm just trying to see, like, what exactly do you suggest, like technology, the kind of technologies, and what does somebody have to go about to do to learn these things, especially when they can't get into these internships that they want to get into, and all the things just because of like, they just don't have the opportunity, or haven't been selected, or haven't just been let in yet because they are lacking experience. And how do you get that experience without having experience? And it just seems like an endless cycle,
Wow, we could do a whole session on that question.
I was going to say, it's what I will, share some thoughts on. Laura, I'm sure you have a lot of perspective here too. First of all, I would say a couple. One, I'll start by saying I never intended to be in financial technology. I kind of said it at the start. I fell into it. My background is my undergraduate degree and my master's degree were both in communications and marketing. So my background school-wise was not in technology. And while I run our banking and data businesses at FIS today, which is in excess of $1 billion line of business, I've worked in technology, I've worked in product management, all quite by accident. Frankly, because I found something that interests me and I kind of went for it. So one, be open to change. Two, I guarantee that where you end your career is working on something that doesn't exist today. So while it might feel like you are not getting the, experience in a certain technology that you want, or into a specific type of role, the path is not always straight, and it is changing so quickly that where you end up isn't necessarily the path that you're starting or you think you need to start down right now. So even the fact that you asked the question means you are keeping your eye out for opportunities and pushing hard. And I think that's honestly more than half the battle.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I'll add, Carlos, to the other part of your question, which was, how to get a job. I understand that's a delicate. I can't necessarily provide you a clear-cut formula, at least not one that you haven't heard already. But one of the things that we're trying to focus on is how do we create those opportunities for students to, demonstrate certain skill sets. And these skill sets are agnostic of what you're studying. The ability to, think creatively, the ability to have, just natural curiosity and want to do your research in preparation of tackling a certain task. Some of these things are just innate as you all are growing and developing professionals. And so those opportunities to shine come in the classroom. They also come outside of the classroom. So there's an opportunity here. And we'll talk to, I think, Jessica, you're representing FIS Talent and Recruiting to talk about FIS University and some of the opportunities at FIS. But the fact that you're here tonight speaks volumes to the desire, the drive, and the ambition that you personally have to continue to motivate and identify those opportunities. And so I hope that we could be a connector, and I hope that you join our career fairs. And I hope that you also reach out and leverage Lavita and myself as a resource. We've done resume reviews or connect you with university career advancement services. We've tried to, partner and making connections and helping build students' networks. And so I would say, and this is for all of you, be hungry and leverage these opportunities. Connect with the guest speakers and the people that we have coming on these calls on LinkedIn. Build your own network and take responsibility for making those connections, leveraging what we've made accessible to you. And so there's a little bit, I'll get off my sandbox, but that's just a little bit of thoughts from Laura today in regards to how we can help make this happen. Because I feel your pain, Carlos, but everyone starts from the same place, which is you don't know anything. And you're not expected to. And I think at some point, these opportunities are to help plant a seed and help grow and develop you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep. Do we have any other questions? I think there might have been a couple others in the chat. How does accounting and analytics career background fit into the fintech industry?
So this is one where I will say analytics, so first of all, I'll first go to the accounting piece of it. So I work in fintech, so I work with a lot of accountants. A lot of my clients are accountants. But I would say it's probably more, the aptitude for numbers, for data, and for the curiosity that information brings. That is one of the most needed skill sets, and one of the most hard to hire skill sets when it comes to, like, when I'm out there looking for people to join my team. Analytics, like data scientists, which sounds like super, like, what is that? But it is really the ability to look at and interpret data and combine different data sets to get insights in other areas. That type of, the thinking it teaches you from just a, strategy perspective is invaluable. So even if you are not pursuing a degree in accounting or data, I always find that taking a class or two and just to start understanding the words that are used, the way and the tools that are out there to look at data can be so helpful.
Yeah. I will say ditto to Melissa, and there is not a function in this industry that won't require you to do some sort of analytics on data, against data. In some of my functions as an executive, I have to speak through success metrics and how that impacts the bottom line. Like, what kind of cost savings are we introducing by implementing a solution? And that requires, some calculation of what those numbers could be. And then someone mentioned statistician. There's also modeling. So data modeling based off of historical data, what can we project in the future? And those are essentially stats, right? Like, I think about my athletic career, it was the same thing. Like, I was almost predicted to have double doubles because I was amazing collegiately in basketball. But that's to say that those are relevant capabilities that really apply to any type of function. As a project manager coming through, banking, I always had to do analytics against our financials. Where are we spending money? Where are there opportunities to cut costs? How can I deliver faster, smarter, and on under budget, essentially? But that requires analytics as well. And then think about the presentation Melissa just shared with all those numbers. That $15 trillion, that was a huge number that required someone to do extensive, and a team to do extensive research to prepare. And so, yeah, that's across the board. I think the next question we had was from Mosera, who has his hand up.
Hey, hey Laura, hey Melissa. Thanks so much for being here with us today, Melissa.
Absolutely.
My question for you is really about kind of the rise and, I guess, continuing rise of AI in the space. Of course, we're hearing a lot about how there's so many opportunities, and there's so many different ways that it can be applied, and so many different areas that you can take with it. But with that too, I'm sure there are probably pitfalls in there also, where maybe people are trying to use it where it might not be as applicable as some people might think. Do you have any thoughts on any potential pitfalls with AI, or kind of the integration with it coming up here?
Yes, so one of the things that we have spent time looking at, debating, right, is where we're going to start using AI. And we made the very intentional decision to to do two things: shield our clients from direct access to AI. So the example I shared a little bit about is, a call comes in to say our client service team, one of our clients, calling to ask a question about maybe how to use our product. the question gets entered into our privately hosted, so in our own private cloud, generative AI engine. And I'll talk about why it's important that it is in that private cloud, because that's the second pitfall. And it produces a response very rapidly for that client service representative to deliver back to our clients. Now, this is important because FIS has over 400 products. They are all highly technical. They are, pretty complex in most cases. So it is really hard to have any employee that's picking up the phone knowledgeable about so many of our products. And those products are continuing to change, right? So just from a knowledge perspective, it's really helpful for us. But we also know that it's not always 100% accurate. Sometimes the answers that it returns are not accurate. So we have that human filter in front of it, because giving a wrong answer, especially when it's about a financial transaction, can have really big consequences for our clients. So making sure that you have truly tested it before you're releasing it. Over time, I very much hope that we give our clients direct access to it. But I think doing so now would definitely be a pitfall. The second piece, and there's been all different articles about it, where different companies have tried it out. They fed lines of code into generative AI applications, and once you do that and you do it in the public cloud, the public domain, that information is now part of the public domain. So Sony in particular had a really, a lot of headline news last year, I believe it was, around the fact that the work they were trying to use generative AI to accelerate code delivery, but they fed all the code into the AI platform, and that was now no longer considered proprietary information to Sony. So it was a real competitive disadvantage for them. So understanding who has access to the information that you are exposing to generative AI would be the second piece. And the second pitfall, right? The more access to information that the AI has, the smarter it gets. But then it also is sharing that same information back with others that are entering information into it. So understanding what are good public use cases versus which need to be protected by some sort of firewall or private hosting would be another thing that I think is going to be really important as the technology matures.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Melissa.
I think we also had another question here in the chat.
There was a question about the technology. I think Will had asked, he said something about what type of softwares do you oversee or service with banks?
Okay, so my role today is I run the core banking and data decisioning businesses at FIS. So I'll give you a couple of different scenarios of what the software and the data solutions that I oversee do. So if you go in to open a bank account, as in you literally walk into a bank, I will tell you, even as the head of banking, I have not been inside a bank in a very long time if it's not to visit a customer. But so if you walk into a bank, you ought to open an account. The teller or the bank associate who's there is going to ask you a lot of questions. They're going to check ID. They're going to put all that information into a system. That system is likely one of FIS's core banking systems. If you do what most people do, which is not walk into a bank, but go to either aggregation site that will tell you where you can get the best rates at a bank, or simply choose, I want to be a Bank of America customer or a USAA customer or whatever it may be, you're probably going to open that bank account online. That is also the type of software that we develop and deliver. So we are running all of that on behalf of the banks. So that would be one example. We do it not only for personal accounts like yours or mine, we also do it for commercial accounts. So if you have a business, that would also be the type of accounts. Loans. So if you're going to a bank to get out a loan, our systems process that. And then when you apply for that bank account, not only do you enter all your information into one of our systems, but our data decisioning software, it's called Check Systems. It is a registered platform that many of the banks use to decide what level of risk a potential account holder represents and whether or not they should be provided with a bank account. So those are just some of the examples. There's many more. I also thought I saw one in here, around generative AI and whether it will reduce the number of entry-level positions available. I do not believe that it will reduce the number of entry-level positions available. I actually think it's going to create new types of jobs that will be needed. Last year, one of the fastest growing new jobs that people could absolutely not staff were called prompt writers. And it was people like writing the prompts for generative AI. And so when you talk about, different career paths into technology, the most sought after individuals for those were people coming out of language programs, right? So not technology at all, but that majored in different languages because of the way that they could think about and prompt questions for the generative AI or the chatbots to use. So I think it'll create new roles. I also think that it will be used as a way to train entry-level employees in a faster, more productive way than we have been able to in the past.
Perfect. I think just to be cautious of time, we're already at an hour in, and I know we have Jessica here on the line to transition into a conversation that relates to some of the opportunities with FIS, and I think that might cover a couple of the questions that we have around internships and entry-level positions. So if you guys are all good, I think I'm gonna turn over to Jessica.
Perfect. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. Give me 3 seconds. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Perfect.
We can.
So now because it sounds like you all are very excited about the opportunities that we have within the company. So I'm going to talk about the FIS University program, which is our entry-level program to help talent kick off their career here with us. So I won't talk too much about what the company is. So hopefully at this point, you guys have a better idea. But FIS, as we all know, surprise, surprise, is a fintech company We're headquartered in Jacksonville, but we do have offices all around the United States and globally as well. So in addition to the banking segment of our business that you learned about, we also have a huge investment and payment section as well. So our investment solutions is called our capital markets area. And then our payment is where we work with Amazon and other companies to help with their payment solutions. And so in terms of career, which is one of the questions that did come out of the chat, the way that I like to look at it is that, yes, we have all of this technology that we're building and providing to our clients. We still need a corporate services area. So whether you are interested in a career in sales to sell the actual products to our clients, all the way to helping part of the development teams that create and upgrade our solutions, to our finance team, to the people in the chat asking about finance. And I mean, even in our HR functions, we still have finance people that we have to ask questions and report to. Today in our team meeting, we were asking about getting new polos for our group, and we have to go to finance for that. So there are many career opportunities in the world of fintech. It's not just the application building area of it. So within the FIS University program, there is a camera on.
They can hear this. Oh, it sounds like they muted themselves.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, whoo. So for our FIS University program, we hire everything from in our sales groups all the way to our software engineers, our marketing professionals, our client support teams as well. So there are plenty of opportunities no matter what your interests are. And so the two opportunities and ways to get involved within our organization, is our internship and our full-time track. And so I'll talk a little bit more about each one of them separately. So our internship is a 10-week summer program. During the duration of the 10 weeks, in this case, it'll be from June 3rd to August 9th. You will be working full-time, 40 hours a week. It is a paid internship. The areas range, like I mentioned, from our product to our sales teams, software engineers, and in between. So you're getting full exposure, what it looks like in the day in the life of working at FIS in a fintech company. In addition to that, we have some additional perks and benefits to help you build yourself and grow in terms of your career and as a professional. The goal of our internship is to hopefully bring you on full-time once you complete the program, and many of our participants do come back for full-time roles. The main requirement that we have for our internship program is that you must be a rising senior. So in this case, you have to be graduating by May 2025. And unfortunately, at this time, sponsorship is not available for any of our positions. And so with our 10-week summer internship program, some of the things that we do, like I mentioned, we have weekly webinars. So we'll bring in leaders within the organization to talk about like inclusion and diversity. We have a financial literacy workshop, communication, interpersonal skills. We also have social activities, which I'll show you guys in another slide in a moment, where we have like scavenger hunts, arts and crafts, and other activities for our interns. We also do some networking in there as well, and a business presentation. And so, like I mentioned, a full exposure into what it looks like to work at FIS while building your network and your career as well. And so here are some examples of things that we've done in the past. So here are the weekly webinars and the different topics that we kind of go over. We also have a career development workshop as well. So when you go back to school that following semester, you'll have a fresh resume ready to go. And also the social networking opportunities as well. And then so here are some pictures of our interns. This is my favorite slide in the past cycles. And so here are some events that we've hosted for them. My favorite office is our Jacksonville office because we have a huge golf simulator in there. And so we have a relaxation pod. And so during the past summer when the interns were there, I'm pretty sure they had a scheduled time every single day where they would go down and play golf, ping pong. Wow, my brain. And we also have like arcade games and like Xboxes down there. So I'm definitely sure they were there a lot of the time. But all of our offices have fantastic and wonderful ways for you to really get involved and have fun in the spaces as well. And so
my day, we had a cubicle of 4 interns. I was sitting with like 4 people to a desk.
No, they have relaxation pods. It's literally it's like a relaxation room, and it feels like a spa. And I like with the music, the dim lights, and these cool little pod things. And then like, it's so cool in there. Like, I love going to Jacksonville. Shameless plug, but other offices, Atlanta.
I was going to say, it is very spa-like and amazing.
I love Jacksonville, but Atlanta's cool too because it's near Target and you can go to the movies and stuff, but nothing beats the and there's a gym in Jacksonville, so a really great office to be in. And then for the full year, two-year program, it is a 2-year commitment, and the start date, so we have multiple start dates to align with graduation in January, March, June, and September. Our positions are open to all majors. The only requirement is that you must have a bachelor's degree by the time you start. Again, sponsorship, unfortunately, at this time is not available for any of our FIS University roles. And so some of the benefits of the full-time program is not only will you have the opportunity to build and grow your skills, like I said, within the program with a support and a structure, you'll also have the opportunity to take advantage of some perks that are unique to our program participants. Some of those perks and benefits include biannual merit review and raise opportunities. We also have a wonderful student loan repayment program that makes me reconsider my job every day, especially when those loan payments start. But basically, FIS will help pay your undergraduate's principal balance on your loan over 10 years of service. All you have to do is pay the interest, which is a really cool loan option. We also have professional development built into the full-time program as well. Instead of weekly webinars, they'll be now monthly. And so we'll also bring in senior leaders from the organization to talk about communication, marketing, how to write emails, technical workshops as well. And then mentorship opportunities to help you transition into your full-time role. With our full-time program, we also have something called our Learning Week, which is our structured onboarding to help you start your career successfully here. And so during the Learning Week, we'll dive deeper into our company and who we are, our values. We also bring in different speakers from the business to talk about their areas. And at the end of the week, you'll have a final presentation with your team members and get the opportunity to share what you learn with your manager and other people within the organization. Within FIS as well, so one of the really cool ways to get involved is through our inclusion networks. And so our inclusion networks are company-sponsored communities centered around different dimensions of diversity. And so like Melissa talked about, she's involved in a couple of these on this slide as well. And so they are opportunities for you to not only engage, they host different events. So for this Black History Month, Elevate is actually bringing Grandmaster Flash to talk, and I'm so excited about that. But we bring in different speakers. They host both in-person and virtual events to help, support and positively impact the workforce. And so now that you guys are like, oh my gosh, that was so great, I just want to work here now. How do you work here? On our career site, all of our positions are posted. And so if you go to careers.fisglobal.com, we have, like I mentioned, so the next start dates that we have are March, June, and September. And so our positions, including our full-time and internships, are posted on our career site right now. And so I'm going to stop screen sharing to see if you all have any questions for me.
Hey Jessica, this is Josie. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I was looking through the career job search, and I was looking for the virtual job options. It does say virtual, but then it gives like the Florida and the Florida zip code. So I wasn't too sure, like, is it virtual only to like Florida residents, or is it just virtual period for any state?
Yeah, so if it says like virtual, it's a virtual position. It's just that our codes are kind of funny on the website as long as it says virtual, and it doesn't say anything that you must be located. So some of them do say you have to be located in that state, but a vast majority of them, you don't have to be located in that state. It's just the default code if it says Florida virtual.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Jessica, one of the other questions that I think came in was whether or not the internships or the FISU program can be remote?
So for our positions at this time, you have to be in the office. And so the reason for that is kind of to a point that we were talking about earlier, the advantages of being in the office. I know people are like, no, virtual. But when you're starting off entry level and getting into your career and not knowing anyone, we hear from our students all the time. It's really hard to network and make connections. And so we really want this opportunity to be as fruitful for you all as possible. And so that we think in person, and even from our candidates, it makes a better experience. So we only have in-person opportunities.
I think we have a hand up, Carlos.
Hi, yeah, so I have a question for you, Jessica. So I'm noticing right now y'all only have 3 positions for like internships and stuff like that for the Atlanta.
Oh, that might be true. I didn't. Oh, so let me clarify. All of our positions are not posted. I do have a couple more Atlanta positions that I am in the process of working through and getting posted. So you may have to check back for those.
Okay, cool. Because I'm a finance major and like luckily I finally fit into those kind of requirements that you're talking about, like being a rising senior and whatnot. But one thing that I want to tell you, and this is like a very not super personal, but it's personal to me right now, right? The only real job experience that I have is, I've been paying my way through college. I'm a server, I bartend. That's literally probably the only job experience that I have theoretically. What could I do right now that could like make me more successful of a candidate in these opportunities, aside from just like going to like events like I'm doing now and stuff like that? Because I tend to be pretty knowledgeable in what I do, but it's just like, I don't know if like most folks, they try to give an opportunity to people like me who just have this kind of experience,
Yep. So on the bright side for you, I'm pretty sure like half of the people in this call can definitely relate to that. It's not just about having all the internships. I've hired students that only had part-time jobs. We understand that not everyone, I mean, for a variety of reasons, can get an internship during their undergrad. It's really about your skills and how you're able to present yourself to an employer. So for example, I've hired students that are not even finance majors for my roles. I've hired public health majors into project management positions and into other roles within the organizations. It's how can you talk to an employer to sell your, not even sell, your skills and experiences. Because remember, the hiring manager is trying to hire the best person for this job. And so 1, you have to believe that you're the best person for this job. But 2, how do you communicate effectively to the manager? Like, and you don't even have to say, I don't have an internship experience. Through your experience working as a server, through your involvement on campus, if you look at the job descriptions, the things that we're looking for, it doesn't say must have a finance internship for a vast majority. It says communication, interpersonal, teamwork skills. As a server, you had to use all 3 of those skills. And so really, how do you convey that to not 1 on your resume, 2 to a manager when you're interviewing is the main and important thing. And then another side note, like they said, attending these events are very important because networking is one of the biggest ways that you're going to find opportunities as well. And so really networking and not just coming to the event and ending, but like following up. So like I've had some of the speakers come in and they're like, yeah, if you want to talk to me after this event, it may not lead anywhere at this time, but in your career path, who knows what's going to happen. So really taking advantages of the opportunities that you have.
Cool. Okay.
I'll also just add to that and say that when I'm in portions of my career where I have been the direct hiring manager for entry-level roles, I am not hiring or looking for you to come in with experience. My questions during the interview aren't going to be like technical around how to do something, but they are going to really focus on, tell me about a challenging situation that you've been in and how you handled it, right? I can only imagine that as a server, the number of challenging customers that you have dealt with is really high, right? So
No doubt.
hearing the way you talk and position yourself is really what I'm looking for. The creative ways of thinking, right? It is not in those roles so much about, you know, the technical experience. It's really about attitude.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And I noticed that you shared some of these links too. Were these going to be where like we kind of find those opportunities that you were just talking about as well?
Yeah, so the 2 links are all of the positions that we have posted on our career site at this time, minus the ones that aren't all there.
Cool. Do you have maybe a time frame of when you would post the other positions as well that you were referring to?
I was supposed to, not gonna lie, post them before I got on this call, but I've been in calls all day, so that's kind of my fault. The goal is to have them before career fairs start because students need those positions. So
So
Cool.
Carlos is keeping you on track. He's
right,
like, take your time.
Mhm.
they'll be there,
Yeah.
I promise.
It's that experience that you're talking about, you know, just the way that you speak with folks, you know. That's what
Mhm.
I be doing. Well, I appreciate that so much. Thanks, guys. That's
I
awesome.
think Tanya also had a question. I might have missed you earlier, Tanya.
That's okay. I'm patient. I had a question for Melissa, if that's okay.
Sure.
Melissa, my question for you is, what's the future of banking with the rise of cryptocurrency?
I wish I knew the answer. So I will tell you, even from our own perspective, we went from having like us as FIS, when you talk about having a technology and then applying it to solve a problem, like where I was going out and personally having conversations with so many of our banks about crypto. What are you thinking about it? You know, what's on your mind? Blank stares. To then having them bang down our door like 3 months later saying, I absolutely need to figure out how to offer this within, you know, to my banking clients. I've worked on the wealth side of the house, and it's also been seen as an investment vehicle. And then all of a sudden, crypto winter, and now it has become kind of what I think of almost, I gave the buy now, pay later example. I could have just as easily done a crypto example of what's going to come next, right? There will be an evolution. The amount of crypto, Bitcoin, and whatever the next digitized currency is, will be there. Those numbers continue to rise. I can't recall off the top of my head what it is, but it's pretty staggering when you see in comparison to the headlines coming down on it. So I do believe that more and more digital currencies will become available, but that only those that gain critical mass and are supported by changed regulation in the US in particular will really gain traction. So it's not going to be the here tomorrow that I think everyone thought it was 18 months ago.
Thank you.
And Will Davis, did you have a question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So currently I work in consumer retail banking now. And I've interviewed with some companies in the past, but like with FIS specifically, and then you guys saying that, you know, you have been on the interviewee side, or, you know, or the ones conducting the actual interview. I feel like one problem that I always had was, you know, I didn't really have that pressure going throughout the rounds of the interview, or, you know, speaking upon more like qualitative type of work and like the skill sets that I actually do possess or have. But then when you're actually getting to that, like that final round interview to kind of get to know each other, it's like, I feel like the formality of it and the pressure that it puts on me in the like that environment prevents me from actually being personable and actually getting along with the people in the interview. And that's obviously something important when you're looking to bring people on as part of a team. But I feel like I just don't seem like a pleasurable person because it's like a dam blocking a river. You know, I don't feel like my natural flow is actually going. But like, do y'all, when you're interviewing people, see that and like acknowledge that, or like, or what would be maybe ways to get around that, to like break that ice barrier when you're trying to like, when that pressure is actually built up in a final round interview?
I know with me personally, when I'm talking to candidates, I kind of try to make them feel comfortable in the beginning because I understand everyone's different. So I'm probably not, because I don't want it to feel pressure. But I think the main thing is with practice, you can tell when someone has practiced for an interview, because you can, I don't want to say like inauthentic, but with practice, you can find out what comfortably works for you, where you can highlight your professional side, but still show your personality and not feel like a robot when you're talking. Because I've had feedback from hiring managers plenty of times. They tell me like this, I really like them, but they sound so robotic, like they're preparing their answers ahead of time, which is not what you want to do. So finding a way, and it really honestly takes practice. I know I'm saying that. Practice is how you will get where you feel comfortable in answering and responding to people in a way that feels authentic to you.
Okay. And then can I ask like one more thing in addition to that? So with being a finance major and like myself, like one thing that I've noticed just upon like past jobs that I've done is I can't do something work-based that's nothing but client-based. But at the same time, I can't have something that's just back-end work as well. Because for a while there, I did like ocean air import clearances for a freight forwarder and accounts payable and receivable for an overseas agent for like international brokers. But now, obviously, I work on a more consumer retail facing side. And I feel like what would be a good mix between those two to where I would feel comfortable expressing both of those skill sets?
My answer, I'll give you a few, but Jessica, think of others. And this is just based on my own career path. Product management has a great mix of being out in the field with clients, understanding what their needs are, but then coming back inside the organization and translating that into requirements that are going to like be the basis for our development. So that has a fantastic mix of both of those. I also think project management, especially like if you are implementing solutions, right, where you're with the clients, but then you're internally like problem solving as well, could be a good.
Okay.
That's
well,
exactly
I
what I was
appreciate
about
you
to
guys.
say. The implementation, we're actually, well, we're not graduate. I don't know when you graduate, but we're actually hiring for some implementation. Oh, and they'll be in Atlanta, the positions that I haven't posted yet. We are actually hiring for, we're actually hiring some implementation product consultant roles. So that could be a good one to look into. Our technical business consultant ones are also another really good one to look into. And then there's another one called implementation conversion analyst. So that's different than the product consultant. That's something else that you can look into. We also have sales ops analyst teams. So they're not actually sales people, but working behind the scenes to support our sales team. So that's another one that you can look into as well. So there are a couple opportunities that balance that, like not too client facing and not too data focused.
100%. I saved 3 of those because I'm terrible at remembering the names of things. So I do appreciate that a lot, but I won't hold up anyone else, but I appreciate you guys' feedback.
Perfect, guys. We are just shy of 8 o'clock. We had a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much, Jessica. Thank you so much, Melissa, for your presentation. Is there anything that you two would like to leave with the group before we wrap up?
My comment would just be stay at it, be authentic, right? You can get nervous when you interview, saying, you know what, I'm really sorry, I'm a little bit nervous right now. So I might not come across as my true self, right? All those types of things. Entering the job like force is not easy, but it is also still about being yourself and realizing that you are not coming in to become the CEO or the CFO of the company, right? There are going to be support resources. So walk in with confidence and ask for help when you need it.
Yeah, I definitely would echo that. And being, the word is slipping my mind right now, but keep trying, because I can't think of another word, because just because it doesn't happen like the first time or this go around, I've had students that have applied literally 3 semesters, and it was the third time they came around is when they got their opportunity. So not thinking about it like, okay, because this didn't work the first time, I guess this isn't for me. Sometimes it's just the timing isn't right. The position may not be the right one. And so definitely it does take some determination. And then just being authentically you. Oh, and the biggest one, it's not only us interviewing you, but you're interviewing the company for a fit as well. Not every single person that applies to FIS may not be a fit for all of you. It may only be a fit for some of you, and that's okay. The position may be not a fit for all of you. So really asking those questions to see if this is I think we're a great company and I love it here. And we want you to love it here too, but really asking those critical questions and seeing if what we do aligns with your values and what you're looking for in an organization. So I think that was like 3 pieces of advice, but hopefully one of those you find useful.
That was perfect, Jessica. That was perfect, Melissa. Thank you guys so much for spending time with us tonight. Thank you all for joining on the line, and we look forward to our next event with you guys next week. Cool. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you guys for the meeting. I will be applying to jobs right now. I'm
Hope
so
to see
excited.
your application.